See, we do have the best music in the entire Dallas-Fort Worth area, I think. So I've spent the last week on 2 retreats. I practically forgot where I work or how the service works. I was for 4 days in Fort Lauderdale, near Fort Lauderdale, at a retreat center with MCC clergy. You know, that's one of my affiliations. I'm a Metropolitan Community Church minister in addition to Disciples of Christ and United Church of Christ. And I really wanted to touch base with my background, with my past. You know, Cathedral of Hope also has roots in the Metropolitan Community Churches. For those not familiar with it, it's sort of the historic church of the gay community. Cathedral of Hope began as a Metropolitan Community Church, MCC Dallas. And I'm so grateful to you for allowing me time to do things like this. And I was reminded, too, of how important it is when you're facing decisions about your present or your future to check it out with other people, to be around people that you can trust, to ask you questions, to support you, people who really know you, and the importance of groups in keeping us accountable to our best selves. And then the last 2 days, I was at a Hope for Peace and Justice retreat. Hope for Peace and Justice is our interrelated ministry partner that does social justice work here in the church and in the world also. And that opportunity, too, was great. We dreamed about future plans for social justice. We evaluated the things that we've done this year. But what I was struck by most was, again, the importance of group process, the importance of what a group of people can do together far more effectively than we can do individually. I think that being attuned to groups is a spiritual practice. So I want to reflect on that a little bit today, how Jesus is influenced by others. We tend to think of Jesus as perfect and fully formed for the moment he was born, and I don't think that that's accurate. Jesus evolved in his spiritual life, and that's evident in this story from Matthew's gospel. Also, I want us to remember that this past week we commemorated the 69th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan, August 6th and 9th in 1945. In Hiroshima, out of a population of 330,000, somewhere between 90 and 120,000 people lost their lives. And in Nagasaki, on August 9th, out of a population of about 250,000, 80,000 to 90,000 people lost their lives. And then there was the aftermath of the illness caused by radiation poisoning that continued to claim lives for a generation. I know, again, the wonderful thing about spiritual community is we have many politics, and yet we find a way to be together. We may never agree on whether or not that was a useful strategy in bringing that particular war to an end. I do believe that's what the people who did those bombings believed. But I hope we can agree that in the bigger picture, the use of atomic weapons is not the way to bring about peace. And perhaps because it happened then, it won't happen again. And church is an important place to remember those who died in the war on all the different sides, and to pray for peace. That's one reason why we come together. You know, Paul wrote in the letter to the Ephesians that we heard this morning, Christ is our peace. And that peace is not just internal, metaphysical. It should be manifest in the world around us. The world should look different because of our spiritual convictions. And peace is one of the fruits of the Spirit. Peace is how we know that we're having an effect, even when we disagree with each other. In the 1960s and 70s, there was a phrase in the women's movement first, but it became more broadly applied. The personal is the political. And it referred to how we are in our individual lives does have a meaning in society. And our personal values also mean something in terms of the larger world. It had many meanings, but that's the piece I want to pick up on this morning. because I believe that in this passage from Matthew's gospel, we see the personal and the political, and Jesus has an important breakthrough that I think helps us understand how we can bring about peace in the world. So it opens with Jesus. It says, Jesus left that place, which was Galilee, his home turf, if you will, and went away to the district of Tyre and Sidon. So Jesus left his own country. This is what it was akin to, and without papers, went to Tyre and Sidon. Things weren't going so well for him in his homeland, so he went somewhere else. Other names for Tyre and Sidon used in the Bible are Phoenicia. So if you may have heard of those places. And it says that Jesus, just then a Canaanite woman from that region came out and started shouting. So who is a Canaanite woman? Canaanite, even in Jesus' time, would have been seen as an anachronistic term, an old-fashioned term, and a somewhat unflattering one. To be associated with Canaan, which is where Jesus was, would be to be, the word we would use today, I hate using this word too, pagan, for lack of a better word. Not just of a different religion and a different ethnicity, but also one that people like Jesus, with his Jewish sensibilities, found offensive. It wasn't just that they disagreed, they characterized it as outrageous that people would hold these differing religious opinions. So this woman comes out, and seeing Jesus, she greets him with this way, Jesus, have mercy on me. And she uses the term son of David. So she's alerting him that she recognizes that he is a religious leader of a different religion, one with whom they're often at odds in society. Now, you know, the Roman occupiers of Israel, Palestine at that time, found it a convenient way to keep the various peoples of the lands under their occupation, to keep them separated from each other. They fought with each other, and thus were easier to control. And she is acknowledging, yes, I'm a Canaanite. Yes, I don't share your faith, but still I greet you with respect, and using this title of respect associated with your faith. And she says this, my daughter is tormented by a demon. I've told you before that I really believe the healing stories that are in the Bible. I'm a well-established liberal. I like to think in many things. But theologically, when I come across a story about a healing, about a restoration or a transformation, I absolutely believe that it happened. Something happened. Something was changed. Someone was changed. And that is one of the hallmarks of a healthy spiritual life, that we can be changed and we can affect change in others through solidarity and also through prayer. And in this case, she comes to Jesus with great respect, saying, this is my human situation. My daughter suffers, and I feel helpless. And I ask you, human to human, to express your compassion. And if you can do something, do something. Now remember, these are people who are essentially at war with each other. It's very bold for her to express herself to him in this way. It's breaking about 10 different rules of social etiquette. But her love for her daughter compels her to reach across the divide and to reach out to Jesus. And this is what Jesus does. He did not answer her at all. And this is the unflattering depiction of Jesus I want us to sort of acknowledge for a moment, because there are scholars who say even that this portion, this picture, this episode in Jesus' life can't be real because it's so unflattering. And they question whether or not it should be included in the Bible. I think it's what makes me believe that Jesus is authentic. We see here his capacity, not only for rudeness, but in a moment we'll see for prejudice, for bigotry. There's no other word for it. and we can't sugarcoat it. That's what happens. He did not answer her at all. And then those around him, his disciples, came and also urged him, saying, "Send her away. She keeps shouting after us." Sometimes to people who have privilege or power or authority, another person asking for justice, vindication, or compassion seems annoying, and we'd rather not see them or hear them than engage them. And we see here a picture not only of the early church, but we see what church is capable of when it's not engaging other people as human beings. I know that many people here have had the experience of appealing for mercy to the church and being either ignored or sent away because the questions and the presence make us uncomfortable. And I want us to be able to identify in this story with the Canaanite woman who has no name, like so many women in Scripture, because this text, though we value it as sacred, doesn't even think it's important to record their names. We remember her. And also to identify with Jesus, whose personal spirituality was lacking in evolution here, lacking in enlightenment, and he exhibits the same prejudices that society has. Because it's a way for us also to examine in ourselves, what prejudices do we have? What prejudices, even in recreating church, have we unconsciously replicated in trying to build a new community of liberation? So he says to her now, egged on by his friends, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Meaning, you don't belong to my religion. You're not in my church. Not only will I not deal with you, I don't have to deal with you. It's the ultimate diss. And again, I really want to have us be open to understanding this is like a very low moment in Jesus' life, and we all have them. We all have them. And she responds in this way. She approaches him with respect. She kneels in front of him and says, "Help me." Who can harden their hearts to a heartfelt request for compassion, solidarity, or assistance? I know that the story of Jesus personally motivates me to respond to situations like this. And I believe that it has credibility because here we see not the woman's daughter with a demon, but Jesus struggling with the demon of racism, of xenophobia, being afraid of a stranger, of rudeness, of sexism. All those things are in this story. Gender, race, class. A woman of Syrophoenicia or a woman of Tyre and Sidon, it's a wealthy area, so that she's likely a person who has some means. And perhaps there's a class tension there with Jesus and the disciples. So this is what he says to her. It's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. Now, in case we're missing this through the politeness of 21st century English, do you understand what he's saying? He's calling her a dog, comparing her and her people to a less than human status. And he uses a phrase that men often use in relation to women when they wish to demean a woman's humanity. And it begins with a B, and I know you know what it is. She says, "Yes, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." She turns it around. If she could snap, she would. Maybe she did. She took his insult and gave it back to him in a polite way. She didn't respond in like manner with an insult. This is creative nonviolence. And she is able to jolt him out of his prejudice and into the present. I believe that we see Jesus being healed of a demon here. Jesus' conversion, if you will, an insight that becomes an important foundation of the Christian religion. She answers back in a smart manner, and he says, "Woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And also, P.S., her daughter was healed instantly. This story is about the power of those who seem powerless to transform through creative nonviolence an encounter into one that could be a sad footnote or one that results in transformation. Jesus' personal life and politics are challenged here, and he changes as a result. How cool is that? We catch him in an unflattering moment, and we see his capacity to transform and release an old way of being. And he also honors her. He doesn't say, "I now will heal your daughter as a reward." He says, "Your manner of treating me in this situation, which was not my best, is more powerful than even my power to heal. It's your example, your faith, that brings healing into this situation." I was thinking about the story of Sadako Sasaki, just a young girl who, seemingly powerless, managed to transform a situation in which she was ill mortally into one of transformation for the world. And I want to lift up her example today. Sadako Sasaki was born in 1943. She lived in Hiroshima. She was 2 years old when the atomic bomb was dropped there. And she continued to grow up. She did not perish. She showed no signs of illness or trauma physically. She was an athlete, and she wanted to be a physical education teacher. In November of 1954, at 11, she developed first a cold, then mumps, they thought, then leukemia, which the people of Hiroshima called the atom bomb disease. I'll never forget this, reading in John Hershey's book, Hiroshima, that people who manifested radiation sickness, one of the signs of it were purple lesions that appeared. And those of us who lived through the AIDS years remember what the appearance of purple lesions meant. So I've always felt a sort of heart connection with her. She believed that she would not die of this disease. She grew up with a tradition that if you made 1,000 paper cranes, little birds, big birds actually, but they have a way of making them out of origami. I could never do this even as a child, but if you take a little piece of paper and fold it neatly, it would result in this little work of art that looks like a bird without using paste or scissors or tape. She heard that if you make 1,000 paper cranes, your prayer or your wish will be answered. And so she made 1,000 paper cranes, and she said this, "I will write peace on your wings, and you will fly." And when she died in 1955, her prayer for her personal healing was not answered, but she had an impact that was much broader. Other children took up this cause and made paper cranes. The children of Japan dedicated a monument to her a few years later. And at the bottom of the monument, well, at the top of the monument, she stands releasing a paper crane, and the wings of the crane look like this. So, though from a different culture, as a Christian looking at that, silhouetted against the sky, I see a reminder of how a death, seemingly senseless, can bring life. And then at the bottom of the monument, there's this inscription: hear our prayer, hear our cry, peace in our world. Like the Canaanite woman, she made a prayer, and it led to a healing of the world. The demon is in us, not in her body. I want us to remember, hear our prayer, hear our cry, peace in our world. And I also want to appeal to us about something else in this story that I think is important. Jesus is challenged by a woman to see her as human, and his first response is to call her a dog. One of the things I loved about our Hope for Peace and Justice retreat that we were on, not only did we review all of the things about immigration that we worked on, and we were proud to see, I don't know if you noticed this in the news coverage on the television and in the Dallas Morning News, that our church was depicted in a widespread way for our interest in immigration, and not in any way really as a gay church. I love that. I like being a gay church, don't get me wrong. But I think in some ways it was showing us something about what we can do with our own experience and translate it to something larger. But after we reviewed that, or in part of reviewing it at our retreat, our group that is mixed male and female, almost half and half, had a discussion about sexism in our group. I'm sharing something a little unflattering, but I want to lift it up because it was an honest-to-God, men and women talking to each other about what it's like for a woman, for example, to hear from a man, calm down, calm down. Because it isn't just about gathering your senses in a moment of panic. It's about what men say to women in order to silence them and not take them seriously. And what I loved about this is that we all stayed in the room and we talked it through, and there was no defensiveness, but an openness to re-examining how it is that we are together as women and men. I'm sharing this with you because I think it's a great model for our whole church and part of our healing that has to take place. I kept thinking of this poem by Marge Piercy called For Strong Women, and I want to leave us with that. It uses a word, that B word. I'm not going to use it. It's powerful in the poem, but what I remembered from yesterday was even to hear the word quoted can reinscribe some of the hurt, and I never want that to happen here for anyone. So for the Canaanite woman, and for the young Japanese girl, Sadako, and for strong women in our church and throughout the world, let me share this in conclusion. A strong woman is a woman who is straining. A strong woman is a woman standing on tiptoe and lifting a barbell while trying to sing Boris Godunov. A strong woman is a woman at work cleaning out the cesspool of the ages, and while she shovels, she talks about how she doesn't mind crying. It opens the ducts of the eyes, and throwing up develops the stomach muscles, and she goes on shoveling with tears in her nose. A strong woman is a woman in whose head a voice is repeating, I told you so, ugly, bad girl, B word, nag, shrill, witch, ballbuster, nothing, no one will ever love you back. Why aren't you feminine? Why aren't you soft? Why aren't you quiet? Why aren't you dead? A strong woman is a woman determined to do something others are determined not be done. She is pushing up the bottom of a lead coffin lid. She is trying to raise a manhole cover with her head. She is trying to butt her way through a steel wall. Her head hurts. People waiting for the hole to be made say, "Hurry, you're so strong." A strong woman is a woman bleeding inside. A strong woman is a woman making herself strong every morning while her teeth loosen and her back throbs. Every baby a tooth, midwives used to say, and now every battle a scar. A strong woman is a mass of scar tissue that aches when it rains and wounds that bleed when you bump them and memories that get up in the night and pace in boots to and fro. A strong woman is a woman who craves love like oxygen, or she turns blue choking. A strong woman is a woman who loves strongly and weeps strongly and is strongly terrified and has strong needs. A strong woman is strong in words, in actions, in connection, in feeling. She is not strong as a stone, but as a wolf, suckling her young. Strength is not in her, but she enacts it as the wind fills a sail. What comforts her is others loving her equally for the strength and for the weakness from which it issues. Lightning from a cloud. Lightning stuns. In rain, the clouds disperse. Only water of connection remains flowing through us. Strong is what we make each other. Until we are all strong together, a strong woman is a woman strongly afraid. This morning, I give thanks for the strong Canaanite woman who was not afraid to challenge Jesus, and for Sadako Sasaki, and for the strong women in this place. Amen.